Peace, everybody. I'm making this video today talking about failed leadership and our lack of vision. The Bible says, without vision, the people perish. And it also says, our people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I shall reject thee. For the last 60 years in the United States of America, post-civil rights, even before the post-civil rights era, post-slavery to be exact, there was this push by the so-called Negro elites to delineate what the original delineation were from the former enslaved, because the Negroes from the North, W.E.B. Du Bois from Boston and whatnot, New York, their families were never enslaved. So they say they're not like us. They're not like us. And he created the talented tent philosophy. Actually, he got the talented tent philosophy, W.E.B. Du Bois, from John D. Rockefeller, to say that 10% of the Negro is exceptional, the exceptional Negro. And that 10% will one day create this utopian society, integrated into white society. And all the money should go to this leadership class that'll lead us to salvation. Well, little did they know, the black community were only going to get enough resources for 10% of the population. So that means 100% of the people has to share 10% of the resources. That's going to create extreme poverty. Extreme poverty. Even if everybody get a tenth of the resources, it's still going to be not enough to survive. So you're going to have extremely rich people, you're going to have extremely poor people. And extremely poor people are the people that's going to live in government subsidized housing, sharecropping. And then you have the Negroes that probably get 90% of the 10%, living lavishly next to white folks. This is Tariq Nasheed. Now they got a new delineation movement talking about we're going to delineate from Africans and Caribbeans and so-called tethers. And somehow, when we delineate from them, we're going to be allied with white folks. Even Yvette Carnell talking about we have more in common with white folks than Africans. The same philosophy as Du Bois. They're going to separate from the Negroes from the South, and they're going to unite and make this integrationist utopian society, the quest for the golden fleece. And then they actually fulfilled this with Dr. King, who was an AKA, a black Greek. And this integrationist philosophy decimated the black community as far as business, education, inclusion. When we had segregation, separate but equal, by law, by federal, state law, the black people had to have the same exact resources and institutions that the white people have in order to facilitate Jim Crow. So you had to have your own hotels, your own Negro leagues, your own restaurant chains. You had to have your own businesses. Now, once you got rid of the Jim Crow, separate but equal, the only person that run these industries now are whites or Mexicans or East Indians, Asians in the black community. There's no longer a requirement that black people had to have their own institutions, because Dr. King fulfilled the W.E.B. Du Bois integrationist fantasy, talented tent philosophy, that they would integrate with white folks. And once these people integrated with white folks after the Civil Rights Act was signed in 1964, the wealthy Negroes who was enjoying 90% of the 10% that was allocated to the black community, they all left the neighborhood. It was the brain drain, black flight. And they left the community with uneducated people. They left the community with all of the people who came migrating from the South, the second great migration, to cities like Chicago, Detroit. When they got to those cities was already decimated because of the riots, the Dr. King riots, that they got killed. And then the business elite class moved out. So that created this situation that we're in now. And for 60 years after 1964, No, I'm not going back in. 60 years after 1964, we're talking about separating from Africans. The remnant, the remnant of the people who was discriminated against by the elite Negroes, the Black Greeks. They're all somehow tied together because the Black Greek children are suffering also. Now we found a new person to attack, Africans. And I'm gonna end this video. I might make another part if people watch this video. The fact, the reason I'm saying that's absurd is because the American Negro, we have a diaspora that live outside the United States. All of these soldiers who fought overseas in Japan, Vietnam, Korea, Germany, who have bases all over the world, they have children, and these children have children, and they all say that their people was from America. They claim America as their homeland. And then we have situations in which a mass amount of American Negroes in the early 1800s was sent to Africa, and in the 1700s was sent to Africa. You had Sierra Leone was established, I think, in 1790 after the American Revolution. Great Britain was sending the Negroes to colonize Sierra Leone and the islands, Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaica. So a lot of American Negroes were sent to the islands. They were sent to Britain, Great Britain, and they were sent to Sierra Leone. And then when Liberia was established by the American Colonial Society, a mass amount of American Negroes from the South and other parts of the United States were sent to Liberia. And these people who live in those countries now consider America as their home. So you're going to disregard all of these people from all over the world who have a blood connection to the United States through the American Negro. And then during a so-called American slave trade, a lot of the Negroes from the North were sent to the islands, the breeder islands, the sugarcane islands, to work and be slaves. So you really can't tell whose blood or lineage is what. But the last time we had true leadership, the reason I'm making this video is we had Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King, we had Marcus Garvey, we had Elijah Muhammad, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, even Noble Drew Ali. All of these men had one thing in common. They went on a global stage. Dr. King went against the Vietnam War. Malcolm X clicked up with Patrice Lumumba and other leaders in Africa to help in their liberation struggle. Honorable Elijah Muhammad had business partners all over the world, shipping food and resources here, especially Saudi Arabia. And Marcus Garvey, when he created his Black Star Line, he was dealing with international trade with these 4 steamships that he say the NAACP under W.B. Du Bois sabotage. But his whole idea was having like a trade between the islands. He was allocated millions of acres of land in Liberia. They have the rubber trees. He said if the rubber is good for the so-called white man, we could use that rubber and create industries for ourselves. And also Marcus Garvey was a proponent of Booker T. Washington, who created Tuskegee Institute, and also who created Black Wall Street. So in those early 1900s, this whole idea of tethers and delineation didn't exist, because in those time periods, Africa was still under colonialism. Africa didn't really get out of colonialism until the 1960s. Jamaica, they still was dealing with post-oppression, the islands. America was still dealing with the post-Civil War era Reconstruction. We just not getting on our feet. So we saw a connection with all of the so-called blacks all over the world against global white supremacy. And now we're being misled, talking about we're going to delineate from all of the other people in the world that so-called Negroes or black or whatever, and we're going to somehow be cool with these white folks. And we saw what happened with Du Bois and his talented tent philosophy. We was going to delineate from the 90% Negroes who was enslaved, and then we was going to take all the money and we was going to have this utopian society with white folks. and we see the results of that. And now we have these old, decrepit, failed leaders like Minister Farrakhan, Tariq Nasheed, leading us nowhere. They have no insight. They have no plan for future growth, development. They're not building any type of connections with other countries, securing natural resources, like what Elijah Muhammad did with the Nation of Islam. We're doing 1,000,000 times worse. They had world trade going on with Elijah Muhammad. They had their own airport in Gary, Indiana, airplanes. They had engineering, land development company, Progressive Land Developers, where they built apartment complexes all over the United States. They had temples and schools all over the United States. When Elijah Muhammad died, Minister Farrakhan and Waruddin Muhammad destroyed all of the progress of the Nation of Islam and sold the planes, sold all the farms, sold all of the buildings, the stores, sold everything to Arabs. And then they talk about there was going to be solely a religious organization. But they gave away all of our gains and all of our progress to try to integrate into this white society. The only way you're going to function in this society is through separation. Because this United States, in order for them to succeed and have economic success, we are required to be economically destroyed. We are required to be oppressed, imprisoned. We are required to be slaves on the bottom. So there's no way for you to have symmetry and prosperity with your predator. You either defeat the predator or the predator will defeat you. That's why it was so successful when we had separate but equal. We was able to be totally separate from white people. But even though they came and destroyed our cities because we didn't have a military apparatus, we still lack a military community. We don't have a military community, and we don't have a global leadership community. We really don't have a collective political think tank type of group as far as the American Negro. We just blowing in the wind, listening to these charlatans on YouTube talking about delineating, but we should be trying to build economic relationships with these extremely wealthy countries in Africa. Congo is the biggest supplier of cobalt in the world, and you need cobalt in order to drive these electric vehicles and create these batteries. Tesla, one of the richest countries in the world, is dependent solely on Congo. Why can't we take over or work with that industry in Congo, or the cocoa industry in Ivory Coast, or a lot of the industries, or in Nigeria, the oil, they have oil fields in Nigeria. Why are we allowing Chinese and white folks to benefit off of Africa? And we're talking about delineating off of misguided, failed principles and ideologies. Because we really don't know what the truth is, because we don't even, not only do we not have a military community, people dealing with strategies, dealing with, what do you call it? Foreign relations, that's what I'm talking about. We don't have a community that deals with foreign relations. We have people that's into foreign relations as an employee for white folks, but we don't have an independent group of people that deals with foreign relations. We don't have a group of people that deals with history. I would listen to the Black Authority, and a guy said we should have a database with all of this information. He said, Jason Black got offended and said, "You want us to create Wikipedia?" Emotional, dude. We should have our own research and development people who does with history, archaeology, who go and do digs. We had this with Ivan Van Sertima, a European black man who probably saw him as being one of the diaspora from America, because we had people from all over the world. We had people going all over the world fighting these wars and having families with these people in these countries. You can't disregard those descendants and tell them they don't have a connection to the United States. But we don't have a intellectual community that deals with research and saving records and cultivating this information. We don't have a military community, a community that deals with foreign relations, global trade, nothing. You're just on here blowing in the wind. So it's all due to this failed leadership and lack of insight towards what our past was as far as what was successful and what failed. And what failed that we're doing right now was the boy, W.E.B. Du Bois, talented tent, separate philosophy, separate from the poor, formerly enslaved Negroes. While Booker T. Washington say we should focus on those people because those are the ones who has all of the skills. These are the people who built the country. So they still had these skills, so we could just build these people up with education and then direct those skills in order to build our own empire. W.E.B. Du Bois talking about we should focus on intellectual, not necessarily intellectual, but the liberal arts, poetry. We shouldn't focus on manual labor and building and engineering, metal, iron. Because at one point, the blacks, most of the blacksmiths in America were black before the 1900s, before they brought all these Europeans in the Great Migration from Europe. Most of the black metal workers and ironsmiths were black. Even the printers were black people. Now those industries are taken over by all of these other groups of people because the boys convinced the Negro to focus on the liberal abstract arts and not actual manual labor or the vocational studies dealing with the trades. But I've been rambling for a while. That's about it.